Hello, happy, my old friend. I'm glad you've manifested yourself into a human I can depend on to bring me happy. Thank you, happy.
We're back for our latest news and interviews here on A Captain's Log, your weekly talk show dedicated to 56 years and counting of Star Trek excitement. With me in the studio is our co-host, Rogg. And joining us remotely for the third consecutive episode, continuing her mission on Cestus 3, is our lovely co-host, Lili Fox-Lim. Lili, how's the weather? Are you sure you're not on shore leave?
Well, it's fairly close. It's absolutely perfect for a vacation and for an intergalactic conference.
Huh? What?
Now, Rogg, with your heavy space travels, you've probably logged more miles than every Earthling combined. Have you been to Cestus 3?
Yes! Cestus 3 is one of 473 foreign planets that I have visited. The native creatures are friendly, and they have many relaxing tourist spots. But the food is disappointing.
We have several exciting news items to report.
The next official U.S. Star Trek convention has been booked. Star Trek Mission Seattle is scheduled for Seattle, Washington on May 26th through 28th, 2023. That's the Friday through Sunday of Memorial Day weekend of next year. And the event will take place at the Washington State Convention Center, the very same venue that's hosting Emerald City Comic Con this August, the 18th through 21st.
Now we have an update on a recent news item here on A Captain's Log, the 40th anniversary theatrical engagement of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, my favorite film. It's still happening, but one of the dates has been changed. September 4th, 5th, and 8th are now the dates that you can see it in the theaters. The screening will be Nicholas Meyer's 2016 director's cut.
Speaking of Nicholas Meyer, he announced in a Twitter post on April 8th that he hopes to make a mini-series about the activities of Khan between the original series Season 1 episode Space Seed and the aforementioned Star Trek II.
A Captain's Log returns in a moment.
Welcome back to A Captain's Log.
Mark Riccardi, I've heard many stories, good ones, and seen you since I was a teen on television, especially in Star Trek. Now, it's an honor to have you here on A Captain's Log.
Thank you for having me. This is truly amazing. 30 years later, here we are.
Absolutely.
So, Mark, you began in performance work, then moved on to your early days in stunts. When did you first aspire to work in film and television? Tell us about getting your start.
I guess it was 1980. I landed in Hollywood and was cocky but confident. And I felt like I was taking what I learned playing football all those years, the camaraderie, being amongst athletes. And the biggest thing was you get used to when you run out on the field, there's nothing like the applause. There's nothing like the crowd. There's nothing like that thrill, the goosebumps that you would get. And I translated all that into the stunt work because, you know, after a gag, the crew would clap and give you an applause. And I kind of felt that same thing. And before the gag, you would have butterflies, like before a kickoff. So it really, really came together for me my first year. But I found out really fast that it wasn't going to happen as quickly as I thought it would. And with that, Dennis, he picked me up at the airport. I stayed with him for about a year. And he didn't give me, I got to tell you something with Dennis. It wasn't like he was going to hand it to me. He's old school. You got to pay your dues in the stunt business. I paid my dues for a couple of years. And, you know, one thing led to another. And next thing you know, I was in stunt schools and working hard with a bunch of other guys.
Mark, you played quarterback for Potomac State College and West Virginia University. How did your football career go?
First of all, I think you may already know I'm from New Jersey. Dennis Madalone, the stunt coordinator, and I both went to high school together. In fact, I was the quarterback and he was the wide receiver. Dennis was a year older, and his big splash was that he was going to cut out and leave for California to become a Hollywood stuntman. Mm-hmm. And it all it intrigued me at the time, but I had my sights on playing football, and eventually I got a scholarship to Potomac State, and then I wound up going over to West Virginia. I spent about 5 years of college ball that didn't quite pan out. I mean, I was very depressed at by my 5th year, and the NFL didn't come calling. And at the time, there was a USFL. So I kind of had my hopes that if one didn't work, I'd jump into another. But that didn't happen, and I had to look for a plan B, which by my 5th year, it was all starting to add up that if I wasn't going to play pro, that Dennis had set the seed. And I watched him over the years, and I had seen his 5 years of success. And, I know he was on the Johnny Carson show, and he was a big hit in South Plainfield. And I'm sure he probably mentioned all that as well. So, yeah, Dennis is, he was my mentor.
Now, Mark, did playing such a high-risk physical sport such as American football make your transition into stunts a little bit more natural?
Yeah, of course. I put the two together for sure. But on a whole, I was never a guy who was into dirt bikes. I was not a wheel man. I was not a high fall artist. I didn't, fire burns. I mean, I didn't do any of that. I was the guy that you could just totally beat the hell out of. And that's what I knew. And it wasn't till I really came to Hollywood that by going to stunt school, I was able to expand my horizons a little bit. And I went to a Hubie Kern stunt school at the time. And it was kind of a crash course where we spent our weekends throwing punches and learning reactions, which is probably 80% of the business, fights. But on other weekends, we would do the dirt bike riding, and we would get on horses. Now, I'm a Jersey guy. Now, I don't ride horses, I bet on them. Okay. So it wasn't like my cup of tea to be getting on a horse and being told that, at a gallop or what have you, I had to fall off the horse, using a step, you fall right, you fall left, you fall off the back. All this was new to me. So I was kind of adding to my ground pounding repertoire by trying to do other things and learn fire burns and ratchets and air rams. And it takes, it was I tell you, I did 5 years of college, and I probably did a serious 3 years of training before I was really able to step foot on a set.
That's 8 years before stepping on a set.
I looked at it like I was trying to get my medical degree or something. but I was getting beat up as I was going along, and then you ask yourself, okay, how am I going to survive this? Is there a payoff at the end of all this?
And payoff it did, Mark. Indeed.
I mean, God knows, I've been busy. I've been working in this business 30 years. I've sustained that by, doubling guys as well as stunt. Now I've been stunt coordinating the last 15 years. But real quick, if I could, Bryan, there were 4 guys that were integral in my success. And one of them was Steve Carver. He was a director that got me my Taft-Hartley, my SAG card. Tom Morga, who I believe who was on the part of the whole Starfleet, Star Trek Next Generation. He was unselfish, and he stepped aside, I think it was season 4, and let me double Jonathan Frakes. That was probably the biggest thing at the time that could happen, because at that time I was just an ND guy hitting the ground. I was a Jemadar, a Kardashian. I was doing all that kind of stuff. But then there was Kenny Lesko, who was Dennis's right-hand man, that I'm sure Dennis has mentioned him before. He eventually would introduce me to Travolta on Pulp Fiction, maybe 3-4 years after the 6th season for Star Trek. And then Dennis, of course, he basically, after I got my Taft-Hartley, he kickstarted my career and had me working on The Greatest American Hero, which of course then led to Star Trek The Next Generation.
Getting the setting set up for our viewers here with this question, there are many scenes that you're essentially fighting yourself, plus walking side by side above a chasm under the planet Nervala 4 for the Next Generation episode titled Second Chances, one of my favorite episodes. Now, essentially, Will Riker has a twin created by a transporter malfunction accident. So one of the twins, that was created by this accident is stuck on the planet for 8 years. Now, what was it like specifically to work with a split twin Riker with Jonathan Frakes in the Next Generation episode? Tell us a little bit more about this one.
That episode, if I remember correctly, I mean, that was a big gag. I mean, the next generation stunts, you know, I think as long as I was on the show, I don't think I threw a punch or took a reaction. I mean, we did pratfalls, you know, we took phaser shots. I mean, it was this, and then it was go. And you would, you know, do your little skip up and kip up and hit the ground on your back. If you turned around and looked over your shoulder, or you broke your fall with a hand, Dennis would be all over you. I mean, you had to go to your back, and that was the biggest gag that all of us ever did. I mean, there was a lot of work with the swords and things of that nature, but, you know, having something physical like this where Dennis had to bring in the pads, he had to bring in a rigger, we had to cable up, we had to have 2 stunt doubles, and myself and Tom Morga. And then, of course, Jonathan was there on the day. The way we rigged that was on the show, you would see Tom walking about 4 feet in front of me, and then I'm walking behind him, and I'm cabled up with a rig cable to my back. It was just pretty much a 3-2-1 with special effects. We rehearsed it all morning. Jonathan was there. He was down below. I remember watching. It was something that was, like I said, it was bigger than what we've done on the show previous. So to have Tom Morga walking in front of me, he basically makes it to the other side, and I'm about maybe 3 feet from actually getting to the ledge, and that's when the bottom went out. And that was the fall. And I was on it. It was kind of a bungee rig, so it wasn't a real shocker, but it was enough to where I had time to grab the ladder in front of me, which would set us up for the cut where they would do the reverse, which would then be me on this side once we put Jonathan on this side of the ladder. So every time you see the back of Riker's head, it's me. So once I was on the ladder, they did the shot from behind my head up to Jonathan reaching down, trying to grab me, trying to pull me up. Remember?
I do, yes.
Okay. So we did all that from that angle. And then when we turned it around, then we had Jonathan, he was on a ladder at the time and holding on to the frame. And he was doing all that struggling stuff, and he was screaming up at me, and then the camera was behind my head. So, and then I had to change wardrobes each time too, because it was the red and the
yellow.
The yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that day, I mean, let me tell you what, I mean, I worked for Jonathan plenty of times, and it was usually one gag in and out for him. I didn't get many long hours, many overtime with him. But that day, I think because we had to shoot from both angles, it was about 18-hour day. What?
18 hours?
Yeah, which was not uncommon, especially when you were a Jemadar. That's another story. That's 3 hours. That's getting in at 3 a.m. and that's makeup at 3 a.m. for 3 hours, and then work another 18 hours. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the one that I remember the most. And again, I think that was the only time that Tom and I, obviously, were both Jonathan Frakes stunt doubles, and he was brought in, like I said, to be the master of us both walking across the bridge. I owe that whole Jonathan Frakes stunt double to Tom. I'm telling you, when I got there, when Dennis started hiring me in the beginning, he basically put this Italian mug behind a Jemadar mask. So, to be a Bajoran, I look like an Italian guy from Brooklyn with a broken nose. So there weren't many places for me to go. So I think it was season 4, he had an illness. Something happened. He got some type of, I think it was a mono or something or what have you. And he was out for about 3 weeks. And Dennis, looked at me and said, you know what, go put a beard on. And let's see. He says, this will work. He says, you're not 6'3" like Jonathan, but we'll throw some heels on you, and we'll pump you up, and we'll get you out there. And for the next 3 years or so, I didn't take the beard off. Tom, I'm so ever grateful to him. Even when he came back to work, he never said he wanted his job back. But then again, he was doing everything on the set. I mean, Tom played every part. So handing me Jonathan Frakes, I mean, that was definitely something I appreciated from him.
I know one of the biggest moments is the Next Gen Season 6 finale, the Borg and Lore episode titled Decent, where Mark, you played Lieutenant Franklin, a yellow shirt bridge security officer. Can you share with us the play-by-play of that moment?
Dennis just needed a good-looking guy. So he's like, hey, you look good. Let's get you in the suit. It was really nice because I was treated like an actor. When you put the beard on, they flap it on, they peel it off at the end of the day and this and that. But I remember going in, having your name. You weren't a stunt double. You weren't utility stunt. You actually had, it was Franklin. That just happens to be my dad's name as well, which I thought was really cool. And so it wasn't a big gag. I think it was a reaction to a ship shake. And when I guess the Borgs, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Borg, it was Dennis, of all people, of course. He gets phased in and he turns and looks at me and gives me this. And Dennis is very, he's very anal when it comes to when he gives you this, you better go. It's not go before, 2 seconds before, 2 seconds after. So we went over it plenty of times. So when I come around that corner and he's standing there, gives me the old phaser shot, I had to take that footfall and go to my back. And, that was that. I mean, it was over before I knew it. But the idea that I was able to come in and be listed as an actor was really cool and be treated like one. Having my own chair for the first time was really cool. But the real payoff to that, probably 6 or 7 years after the show had ended, I'd gotten an email. He introduced himself saying that he was a Star Trek fan forever and that he was just at a convention in Pittsburgh. And he wanted to let me know that particular outfit that I wore was auctioned off that day, and he bought the uniform, and he wanted to tell me that it was my uniform because it said Riccardi on the back.
That's cool. Wow.
Ain't that something?
A captain's log returns in a moment.
We have so much more to discuss with Mark Riccardi here on A Captain's Log.
You were close to other stunt performers at Paramount while doing the Star Trek series. Fun fact, I love Klingons in particular. Can you please tell us who stunt doubled for Michael Dorn as Worf?
Irving, who came out to be a stuntman, has had a really great career as well. I know he doubled Worf a few times, I believe, along with Rusty. Unfortunately, Rusty is no longer with us.
Oh, he passed away.
Yeah, at one point or another. Stimson and Brennan Dyson, I think, who went on to work on CSI. Working with Dennis was always a pleasure. I mean, going to, nothing better than going to work with your friends. And Dennis made it fun. Everybody loved Dennis. And, at the end of the day, it was all about, getting home safe and, come back and work another day. And there was and the good people, by the way, too, because we were working with different directors each episode.
Mark, hold on for just one moment, please. We have a surprise for you.
We're talking about. Look at this.
Oh no!
Hey,
Madalone!
Riccardi!
What? Dennis Madalone?
Yes, Dennis Madalone.
I was just telling them how I threw you a 60-yard pass and you ran it for 40 yards.
Well, guess what? I got the ball right here, buddy.
There it is.
I got the ball.
Yeah, stop.
Hey, Mark's going to tell you it was a 60-yard pass in high school.
Right.
Right?
That's right.
But it was a 10-yard pass.
And you ran
I caught it. I got the ball. And I ran 60 yards for a touchdown for South Plainfield Tigers, New Jersey.
Hey, buddy, what's up?
All's good, buddy. What's going on?
Bryan reeled me in.
Yeah.
Reeled me in. So we were sitting here having a little chat about all the boys and how much fun we had on the show.
Oh, yeah.
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 It worked out perfectly. Thank you so much for that reaction. That was amazing. What a setup.
I can't believe he's out of the house.
I'm out.
Look at you.
I'm in the jungle.
Love you, brother. Love you.
Love you too, guys.
All right.
See you, Mark. Captain's log.
Out, buddy.
Yes, that was such a surprise. Perfect. It worked out great. Thank you so much for stopping in, Dennis. We really appreciate you doing this. So, Mark, let's get back to talking about some of your films here.
You were asking about favorite moments. I have to say, The Second Chances was one of the better shows, and then we also did one that we shot out at Griffith Park, where I think I got phased there. We got beamed down to Griffith Park, and I'm behind a rock, and I'm shooting whoever it was at the time, and got phased. But like I said, I never took a punch, never threw a punch. And the fact that his back was, Jonathan had a bad back at the time. He just if he had to step off an apple box, he would ask me to do it. That was the great thing. It was like, Riker, get Riccardi in there, But, fourth, fifth, sixth season, and I recognize this with a lot of actors. It's like, get the stunt guy. I mean, they don't even come out of their trailer. It's like, let the stunt guy do it. and that was kind of like Jonathan's attitude. And, Jonathan had a bad back towards the end of the last few episodes.
Oh, he did.
And he had that very distinct walk. And as a stunt double, I learned on that set with Jonathan, which I would later learn and do it down the road with other actors. You had to, as a stunt double, you have to learn their walk. You gotta be them. You gotta, the way he'd take that corner, his head would go first and then his body would follow. You give it that little lean and then go around a corner and come in a door. Watch it sometime. And if they were shooting me from the back, I had to do the same thing. So it was, it was basically, I was, again, it was like college, like going to school. I was learning as you go.
You've served as a stunt double for John Travolta in 10 movies. Get Shorty and Phenomenon were two really big films.
I just got done working for Travolta, okay? I'm on this run with him. It's like my fourth film, a face-off. And my head is like, this has like been the greatest thing I've ever done. And then a month and a half later, I get a call from his office telling me that they're going to go do this movie, Phenomenon. And they're saying, well, there's probably 2 days or 3 days of where you'll need to be his stunt double, but there's 3 months worth of work if you want to be his stand-in. And I'm like, oh, you're kidding me. I said, where are they shooting it? They said, out of town, Northern California. I said, okay, how much? They said, okay, sign me up.
Fascinating inside stories from your days stunt doubling John Travolta.
But, to get back to Star Trek, I mean, that kick-started my career. Really sent me in a direction that, I had already done 2 movies with Travolta, Pulp Fiction and White Man's Burden. And I happened to be on the set with Dennis when I got a call from Bryan Smurs telling me that Travolta wants me to use you on Get Shorty. And I'm like, and I need you here now. I said, well, Bryan, I'm over here with a beard and I'm doubling Jonathan Frakes. I said, I look nothing like Travolta right now. He said, but dude, he says, if you want this job, you need to get here. So Dennis helped me finagle that. And I think I broke for lunch and I ran up to the location and met Bryan Smurs and the people up there. And I wound up doubling Travolta on Get Shorty and Never Look Back.
Mark Riccardi, thank you for joining us here on A Captain's Log.
It's been fun for me. The only thing we're missing here today was the rest of the beard. But the good thing is, Bryan, hey, and this will bust you up, I still got the hair.
You do.
Still got the hair. It could be worse. It could be gray. It could be gone.
Yeah.
I still got the Jonathan Frakes hairdo.
You do.
That beard, like hell. They would makeup artists at the end of the day. They said, Mark, you done? Okay. Whoosh.
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
Like, holy Christ. But you know what? It was all, if I had to do it again, I would jump in a heartbeat.
Yes, thank you for your time and sharing your stories on such an accomplished career, Mark. Join us next week for our Season 2 finale as we interview the great Emmy Award-winning Dan Curry. You won't want to miss it. Bye for now.
Hello, happy, my old friend. I'm glad you've manifested yourself into a human I can depend on to bring me happy. Ooh.